Do you ever feel like your service is only great when you or that one rockstar employee is available, is involved, and the moment you or they are not there, things fall apart? Most people think that means they need better people. But in reality, it means your business, the business, is not built to retain clients. There's a missing system, and it's why clients don't stay as you scale. It's very common. And if you are noticing that some clients get an amazing experience while others don't, depending on who is involved, that's a very normal stage of growth. It doesn't mean your team is weak or they don't care. It simply means the business has outgrown informal delivery. You see, most service businesses don't lose clients because the work is bad, or the service is bad, or their product or service is terrible. They lose clients because the experience is not consistent, the experience is not predictable. And to the customer, inconsistency is a risk. So when one client gets a great outcome and a great experience, and another gets a good enough one, trust begin to erode quietly. Not all at once, but slowly, because clients don't complain. They just don't return or renew. They hesitate to expand or they start looking elsewhere. And the frustrating part about all of this is that every business can deliver excellence with the right plan. Often they lack the infrastructure to do it reliably across people, team, time, or scale. Clients don't leave because your work or service is bad, they leave because you are unreliable. And this problem usually doesn't show up when a business is small. It shows up when things start working, when the business is growing. So as you are adding more clients, more team members, and more delivery touchpoint, variability increases as well. And it's not because people are careless or your people are not good enough. It's because complexity always comes with that. So what used to live in someone's head now has to travel across people, timelines, and expectations. So instead of the business relying on the team's mastery, they rely on the owner's memory. And here's a quiet leak and quiet risk. The business keeps growing on the outside while the experience fragments on the inside. And that's when retention starts to slip, a slow leak. But it becomes harder to tell whether growth is actually compounding or happening or is just replacing churn. So growth doesn't cause inconsistency. Complexity without clear systems does. It's just your growth. So this is a pattern I have seen over and over again in service-based businesses as they grow. Things work well at first because the right people are involved. The owner, a few strong operators, maybe one or two standout employees. Clients are happy, clients love the business, results are solid, and then retention feels stable. Then the business begins to grow, you add more clients are coming in, the client delivery as a result is delegated, and slowly, without anyone making a bad decision on the company, the experience just starts to drop, starts to vary, yeah, based on location. And it's not because standards dropped, but it's simply because expectations were never designed to be reproduced at scale. There's no infrastructure. So the businesses that struggle at this stage usually keep trying to solve it with people. And the ones that stabilize and retain clients solve it with structure. Strong people can't compensate for weak structures forever. So when people talk about consistency, they usually mean one thing: doing the same thing every single time, no excuses. But real consistency in business is not singular or personnel dependent, it's structural. That's why I use what I call the PCW framework, a system for creating a consistent client experience without relying on specific people. PCW breaks consistency into three controllable layers: product foundation, consistent experience infrastructure, and the wow multiplier that builds loyalty. When these three are designed intentionally, the business delivers the same outcome regardless of who is involved, And that's when retention becomes part of the fabric and DNA of your business. So before we dive deep into the PCW framework, we need to remember this. Consistency is not one thing, it's the result of multiple systems, multiple factors working together. So let's start with the product foundation. This is actually where most inconsistency starts. You see, product foundations answers these questions, and most companies don't get this right. What exactly are we delivering? What does done well look like? And what must happen every single time? No excuses with our product. And if you're looking at this, this should include or having clear scope and qualifiers, preparation and recovery standards, and then guardrails that prevent under delivery, and ultimately personalization with boundaries, not chaos. So if the product or service you provide to the marketplace is not clearly defined, consistency is impossible, no matter how good your people are. And then we have the consistent experience infrastructure. This is critical because this is where delivery stops living in people's heads. This is the layer that ensures that the experience feels the same across the board, across team members, across location. And this is where convenience is intentional and not accidental. And then the internal culture and the employee experience to be able to support those standards. And ultimately, execution doesn't rely on memory or effort, but the system that is built around them. And this is where process lives because expectations are operationalized, the quality becomes repeatable, and it's because strong people can't compensate for weak infrastructure forever. And then finally, the wow multiplier. This is not about random delight. It's about designed moment, predictable excellence, and thoughtful touches or touch point that signal care and professionalism. Now, the mistake most businesses make that I see is trying to lead with a wow. But in reality, wow only works after consistency exists. Wow doesn't come from randomness, it comes from a well executed structure. So, here's why PCW solves the retention problem. Because when businesses rely on the owners or rockstar employees, they are using people to solve or replace a missing system. And that never works. That is the main problem. So the PCW flips it and it creates three things: reliability without rigidity, and then personalization without chaos, and then retention without dependence. And that's why retention is not a people problem, it's a system problem. Most businesses try to enforce consistency. What actually works is designing for it. Because if you rely on reminders, meetings, or just be careful or just be mindful, you are already too late and it's not going to work. The strategy or strategically, this means removing the need for heroics in the first place. Now, let's look at all these things strategically inside the PCW framework. So now, with a product foundation, we have to understand that most businesses think having a product or they think they have a product, but what they really have is an intention. When a product is not clearly defined, people interpret good work differently. Personal standards replace shared standards, and the client experience variation even when effort is high. Because product consistency is not about decision reduction, right? You are not trying to make delivery robotic. You are trying to remove ambiguity from what matters most to the customer. And strategically, this means three things. And it means defining non negotiable standards and then deciding where personalization is allowed and where it's not. And ultimately, making quality observable. Because if you can't see it, if you can't understand it, then it becomes subjective. Because subjective consistency is not what you're looking for. Consistency only improves when fewer decisions are left to individual judgment. Undefined product force people to improvise, and improvisation doesn't scale. And then we have the consistent experience, infrastructure. Most businesses wait too long to build systems because for some reason they confuse it with bureaucracy. So instead of designing the experience intentionally, they rely on memory, they rely on culture alone, and then they rely on people or strong people to figure it out. Now, that works for some time until it doesn't. Creating an infrastructure is not about control, it's about reliability. And this exists to answer three things. What must always feel the same to the client? Where does variability hurt trust? And how do we make the right behavior the default? And if you are going to do that, you need to think about how handoffs happen in your business, how communication feels, and how issues are handled and recovered. Because systems are not there to constrain people, it should be there to protect the experience. Because when consistency depends on a key person's memory instead of the team's mastery, retention depends on luck. And finally, the wow multiplier. I mean, this is the glue that keeps everything together. But most businesses chase wow prematurely. They add surprises, extra touches, and random generosity. But without consistency first, wow feels accidental and not trustworthy. Customers don't trust you yet. Wow is the multiplier and not the foundation. Wow should be designed, not spontaneous. It should reinforce reliability, not distract from gaps that already exist. It should feel intentional and repeatable to the customer, something they can expect or look forward to. The best wow moment happen at predictable point because it's designed. It reinforces confidence in the business and then make clients feel safe, not just impressed. The most powerful wow doesn't build excitement. It builds confidence, trust, and loyalty. Wow factors in your business work when clients already trust what to expect. They know what is coming. When clients or customers leave, it's rarely because they didn't like your product or service. It's because they couldn't rely on the experience. They couldn't rely on what was to come. That's why you need to work to remove dependency on specific employees, the owner's presence, and then heroic effort, and replace it with clarity, repeatability, and design trust in your business. Make it a system because it's not about becoming more rigid or corporate. It's about building a business that delivers your standards, even when you are not in the room. And that's where the micromanaging comes in. This is the shift I see most operators eventually have to make because they are growing, not because they are failing, but because they are succeeding. So when consistency is designed into the business, you don't have to constantly watch, step in, micromanage, or compensate for your team. The business holds the standards for you as the operator. Clients get the experience they expect, and you are no longer the glue holding everything together. You are not the one micromanaging and losing sleep because someone is not at the company. That's what real freedom in a service business look like. Not stepping away from quality, but no longer being the only thing protecting it. You shouldn't have to be present for your team or for your standard to exist. And that is why the PCW framework is something we go deeper into our training, especially how to translate it into your specific service model. But even just seeing consistency this way should already change how you think about retention, how you think about consistency overall. So, if this helped you see why retention has felt harder as you scale, the next step is simple. Start designing consistency instead of depending on people. And always, if you want help applying the PCW framework into your business, join me at the next client retention challenge where we help you design your client retention system. The link is inside the description below.